get these axles on the carriage done, you could put them in a very complex fitting on the lathe and then balance them out, or you can take a die slightly bigger than what you need and simply put it on the piece, turn it in, and keep doing this until you get the correct size, and then you slip your wheel on, and that's my tip of the day. Greg came back to me having reviewed the video and made two suggestions, both of which make a lot of sense. The first is that I should use a round blank rather than a square one, so that if I have to take the piece on and off the lathe, I'd get back to the correct spot each time. If you have a square blank, it may not settle to the exact spot. And the second issue is that I should drill out the hole for the bore as soon as I put the blank on, because it's very difficult to do it afterwards. He also felt that my wooden blanks weren't as perfect as the brass ones might be, although I did point out that both the Lignum variety and the Wamara blanks, on the rings there were no chips. There was an illusion that I might have had chips on them, but there really were no chips. In any case, I thought it was a great idea. I'd try my hand at making some bronze cannons, and so I set out to do just that. Off to my metal supply shop, and I bought 10 foot of 1/2 inch bronze rod. I figured I'd have enough stock to do all sorts of things over the next few years. The second little toy that we found, and I knew I had it, I just didn't know where it was a compound slide to cut the taper. It's mounted on a cross slide with 4 screws, and the cutting bit can be placed on either side or on the end, and because it's cutting on the opposite side of the lathe, the cutting bit has to be mounted upside down. We've set the compound slide to 2 degrees. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but we'll start with 2 and then work forward from there. And in this case, we're going to make up a bigger cannon just for the fun of it. This actually turned out to be my 3rd brass cannon, and I decided to go to the bigger one because it's much easier to get a feel and to set the equipment up, which would be different than how I did it when I was turning the headstock. Having said that, even though it was certainly much easier to do, lots more wheels to turn, which means lots of mistakes that were made. In the end, none of them were too fatal, and it came out just fine. Now we have the next problem to solve, which is how do we drill a hole in the side of the cannon to hold the trunnion. The center of that hole is 1/3 of the width at the spot at which the trunnion is placed. So the first thing we had was how do we hold the cannon, because it's now a tapered piece, so that the center line is absolutely correct. And we do that in this little jig that I've made up. It has 2 tailstocks, and so here we have the piece held securely. Now you could have used the tailstock and the head. The problem I'm having is the slide is in the way of me being able to access and drill anything here. So the second we've got it now absolutely parallel to the bed of the lathe. Now the problem is how do we drill a 90-degree hole that's absolutely straight up and down. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I thought I'd hold my drill and drill a few of them, and they were all crooked. So I've long had this problem of a portable drill press, and so I've taken some parts out of various Dremel tools I have, and this is my portable drill press, which I can place it anywhere. and it allows me to go up and down. I have different size springs, and so in the case of this particular piece, I can go right up and drill down on the piece. So just to show you how that happens, I'm going to go to the larger piece. So here is the larger cannon. And why? Because I've set it up. Put that in place, tighten down, and there's the hole. And this is one of the crooked holes. And I was able to straighten it using this, because I had actually put a smaller piece on it. And so I was able to drill an absolutely straight hole up and down. It sits flat on the lathe, and of course I know that the lathe is absolutely parallel to the bed of the lathe. Although this worked, I was still really unhappy with the outcome. It didn't clamp everything down hard, and I was able to fix my crooked hole, and still very unhappy with the movement with the drill press. So I sat down again and light bulbs went off, and now I have found the correct solution. So here we have the two tailstocks mounted on a board and mounted on a mill. And so I have a proper drill press drilling the hole in the cannon. Just to prove to you that it works, here I've set up one of the correct scale cannons, brass cannons, and I'm drilling the hole. This is the starter hole with the dental burr to create a little flat spot, which you always need when you're drilling a curved or round surface. So again, this just gets it down or less than half a millimeter. Now we take that piece out, put the correct drill bit in, and drill the final hole. You may have to lubricate this a little bit. Shareline have this index bed, which I will use to replace the wooden one I made up, and that should make a huge difference. So here's my last method at drilling the hole for the trunnion. And what we have is a rotary table on a tilting angle table with a 3-draw chuck mounted on it. The cannon has been cut already on the lathe, but we've left the stock full so that we have something to hold it. Now we can drill it using the same dental bits to create the starter hole and then drill through it. My good friend Chevy suggested that I make a machinist jack to support the end of the piece, because there would be a fair amount of pressure on the cannon, supported only on one side. So I'm going to make that up if I have to do any more of these. Having mastered the cannons, we're now going to make up the gun carriages. The first thing we're going to do is stick the various pieces onto the appropriate size pieces of wood, and we're going to cut one surface out. But you have to make sure that the wood is thick enough, because the elevation and the plan view might be considerably different. Here are the pieces cut out with both the elevation and plan view, which will help us now shape the pieces. If you've been following my videos, you'll see I use this technique quite often, using table saw almost like a router table, and selectively taking off small bits to shape a piece, and it really does work extremely well, particularly when you're doing pieces where the left and right have to be exactly the same size. The fence allows you to make very accurate cuts. Now that we've got all the pieces made up, we simply go on the gimbals and slice the brackets, in this case, to size, and we'll do this for all the other various pieces. I'm not going to go through the assembly of the entire carriage. Simply say that you need to make up a jig, and in this case, this is the jig. This would be typical one side. Put it all together. Get the various pieces and stick them. And so here is the sequence of the various pieces in the order that you will assemble them. Relatively straightforward. Again, it's just fitting at scale would be the challenge that you'll have. And this will be the result. So there is the carriage fully assembled without the wheels, and of course the cannon that sits on it. That really looks very nicely balanced. So now we move on to dealing with the wheels and the axles. The wheels are referred to as hind tracks. We'll just refer to them as carriage wheels for now. The front wheels are 12 inches, the back wheels are 10.5. So the first set of stock that we took down was 12 inches. We pre-drilled the center hole for the axles and cut the wheels slightly oversized with the intention of going on the thickness sander and taking them all down to the required width. Again, reminding you that you need to make multiple extras, because the odds of these coming out perfect are not that great. You might lose them in the sander, they may break, because I haven't made them the way they suggested in the book, which is that we split them in half and bolt them together. At this scale, that really makes no sense. And then the little tip of the day was my solution to this difficult problem, but it worked out perfectly, and I'm very happy with the whole setup. Well, I'm going to take a little breath and start thinking about how I add all the various parts to the gun carriage. Well, I'm so glad I've finally got this complete. It's been a really learning exercise. I feel very accomplished. Gone to an area where I really had no expertise in the past. I've actually now made 5 brass cannons and 11 wooden ones, and of course the oversized one. I'm very glad that I built this at 1:24 scale, because it got me to understand the jigs that I needed to make up, which are going to be challenging because they're half this size. But all in all, it's really been very rewarding. On the bonus side of it, I got a nice gift from Greg. He found some of the cannons that he had made when he had done the exercise, and so he's stuck them in a monkey mail, and that's on the way down to me along with some monograms. And I'll wait until those come down, compare them to the ones I've made and use them for me to make one as good as, or perhaps even better than, the ones that he made. Who knows? Patience is a wonderful virtue. So it'll be a while before you get another video from me, because I'm going to wait until those come down, and then of course I have to go to my friend Bruce Moutier, the jeweler, who's going to teach me how to make up the molds, and I'll try and cover that as best I can. My iPad has also reached the end of its life. You may not know it, but I've been hooked up to a battery for the longest while. So I've ordered the new MacBook Pro, new camera. So that's going to arrive sometime in the middle of May. And, well, we'll wait and see if it arrives in time for me to make the next video. So we'll see you then. Keep modeling and enjoy this wonderful craft of ours.